Welcome. I'd like to take the time to thank you for watching this short presentation. I know your time is valuable, so I'll be very concise with the information that is delivered. So a quick background about me. My name is Keith Lighting. I teach in the Exercise Science Department at Lenoir-Rhyne University, and I have the distinct privilege of working with our men's soccer team. So this presentation is a retrospective analysis of in-season practice and game global positioning system volume. Now this is a two-part series, so we'll look at this as just part one, and then the second video will be available for part two. So quick background on the season. We have our 2023 men's soccer D2 fall season or competitive season training volumes and match volumes. So during this analysis, there were 18 regular and postseason matches. Our season record was 7-5-6. Now, the data that was collected was from 16 starters and subs that wore this device throughout the season. So when we look at the actual variables that we monitored or evaluated, we used PlayerTech GPS device and software. PlayerTech provided us a player load, which is calculated as the sum of all three-dimensional accelerations. So this is their algorithm that identifies how much movement a player did in all three dimensions. We also evaluated total distance in kilometers. So this provides us a macro level representation of the total volume of movement that each player did. We also have high speed running distance in meters. So this is established at a threshold of 18 kilometers per hour or a representation of 11.2 miles per hour. So any movements that were above that speed threshold was quantified and identified as high-speed running distance. So this provides us a little bit more detail about the longer duration, high-intensity movements that are taking place. Then we also have the number of accelerations that are greater than 4 meters per second squared. So that's purely a count. So how many accelerations were above 4 meters per second squared? We also did or evaluated the same thing when it came to decelerations. So the total number of high-intensity decelerations. So those are the 5 metrics that we evaluated over the course of the season. Now, looking at our training schedule at the Division II level, or at least in this conference, it's fairly consistent where we have a match -2, which is essentially a Monday, match -1, which is a Tuesday. We had matches pretty much every single Wednesday. Match -2 again, which would be a Thursday. Match -1 will be a Friday. And then we have a match on Saturday, and then we have one mandated NCAA day off, which we applied to Sundays. So this is an example of how our schedule was set up, which made for a very consistent pattern when it came to managing training volumes or practice volumes and the match schedule. Now we can see here, this is an illustration of the distance in meters for high-speed running. When it came to a weekly breakdown of where we spent our energy when it came to high-speed running. So this is an illustration of how our weeks were laid out with respect to high-speed running. So for our analysis, we started to notice that as we went throughout the season, the players continued to demonstrate new PRs in those 5 training metrics: player load, high-speed running distance, total distance, accelerations and decelerations. So we started to question what was taking place that allowed for these continued increases in match-specific performance. So what we did is we wanted to identify the relative difference between match-derived GPS values and the training-derived GPS values. So in order for us to do this, we're identifying the relative difference as the match minus 1 GPS values divided by the match GPS values times 100. So essentially we're getting a relative difference between how difficult are the matches versus match minus 1. We applied the same formula to match minus 2. So now we are able to identify how much of a percent, relative difference is there between the match load and the match minus 1 and match minus 2 training loads. So looking at this data, we have the actual match performance in all 5 of our variables. So we can see that we have player load. This is an arbitrary or unitless measure, so there are no units associated with it. We have total distance, high-speed running, accelerations, and decelerations. So when we look at match data compared to the day before a game or day before a match, we see that there is a 63%, almost 64% difference between match data and match minus 1. When we look at total high speed or total distance, we see that there is roughly a 54% difference. So we're identifying how difficult are the training sessions prior to a match. Well, we applied that same analysis to our match minus 2. So really what this is telling us is that 2 days before a game, the training is more challenging or more difficult compared to match minus 1, and that makes absolute sense. We would typically expect the day before a match to be lowest volume of training, lowest difficulty of training, because we're trying to prepare for our match the following day. So this gives us a representation of how we could potentially structure our practices so that we are managing player fatigue and allowing for the athletes to demonstrate their performance on match days. Now, I don't expect you to believe that this is the only way or the best way to do things, but in order to support our data, we have the actual match performance throughout the season. So here we have high-speed running distance again. Our first 3 matches were exhibition games, and then we have our 18 different matches throughout the season, during the regular season and postseason play. So we can see this trend indicating that we are able to demonstrate greater levels of performance through high-speed running as we progress throughout the season. Now, when we evaluated all 5 of these variables, they showed a very similar pattern of increasing the GPS metric as we progress throughout the season, demonstrating that our players were increasing their fitness levels as we progress throughout the season. So this provides support for the idea that this difference between match performance play and training was effective at developing the physical characteristics to increase performance throughout the season. So, in summary, when in season, our matches should be the hardest physical exertion that your players are doing. That means that our training sessions should be used to develop tactical and technical proficiency while also reducing the training volumes to manage player fatigue. So, in general, depending upon the variable that you're looking at, 2 days before a game, so match minus 2, our training volumes should be anywhere between 20 and 60% less than the training or match demands. Again, in general, depending on the variable you're looking at, match minus 1 or the day before a match, our training volumes should be 25 to 80% less than the actual match demands. All right. So this should provide some context about how to structure match minus 1, match minus 2 training sessions so that we're developing tactical and technical proficiency and reducing the training volume to manage player fatigue. So, if you have any questions about the material that I've presented, or you want to shoot me a message and discuss different training strategies, I'd be open and happy to do that for you. Please shoot me a message. My contact information is available here, both via email and on Instagram. So if you have any questions, I look forward to hearing from you.